Welcome back to another episode of the Casey Campbell Podcast. Casey Campbell with you, of course. We are pleased to be joined by the one, the only Alex Faber of the State News. He covers MSU hockey and boatloads of other stuff. How are you, bud?
Pretty good. Still reeling from yesterday's news, I think. I was sent into a bit of a whirlwind, I guess, right after that.
Yeah, and of course, if you haven't heard, if you've been living under a rock, Michigan State hockey announced that Danton Cole is out as Michigan State hockey coach, which came as a shock to a lot of people, including myself, including you. Of course, you were around this team a lot this year, throughout the losing streak and throughout everything that's happened. The attitude was, it looks like Danton's going to stick around. Of course, he is an alum, but but why now?
See, that's the thing that really throws me. Let's say this is a month ago. Let's say the season just ended and Michigan State just got trounced by Michigan twice in the tournament, continuing, might I add, to not win a single Big Ten tournament game under Dan Cole. If the firing is announced that day, I am the least surprised person in the world. It would make a lot of sense. Dan Cole's an alum, as you mentioned. He's a pretty likable guy around the program from what I hear, but it just hasn't been working out. So if it happens that day, it makes sense. No shock here. But a month later, just the tone of his press conference, it was really like Alan Haller, the athletic director at Michigan State, and him had talked. They said they discussed about where the program needs to be. And then Dan Cole made a flurry of changes. He fired a staff member. He made a bunch of transfer moves. A bunch of the roster actually left the portal, including guys like Josh Nodler, the Krieger brothers, although one is back. A lot of players exiting the program, and he was bringing a lot of new ones. So it looked like, by all accounts, it looked like Dan Cole was going to have at least one more shot at this, and then he just kind of gets fired. So the timing is a little inexplicable. Oh, and also, Sam Sklar, my coworker, mentioned this. The hockey banquet celebrating the season was today. So he gets fired a day before that happens. I mean, that's brutal. So the timing is just odd.
Yeah, it is. And honestly, I mean, I was around when my first year in this journalism business was also Danton Cole's first year. I was at that first media day about 5 years ago when it happened. And there was so much excitement around here because at the time, they just fired Tom Anastas and that whole mess. And I don't want to go through all that. Somebody, I don't know, I don't know, ask Neil.
People know Anastas, yeah.
Yeah, we know.
Infamous.
Oh, yeah. That whole mess. And then they came in here. There was a lot of promise heading into the last few years. And, and I've talked to Dan one-on-one several times throughout his tenure. And it just seemed like it was heading in that direction. And then now it's kind of over. What really kind of led to this season? What was it? It just kind of pretty on. I didn't think that this was going to happen. And then there was all these changes and all that.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head with the discussion about how exciting it was to have him on the program initially. In 17-18, when he was hired, I think it was 17-18, I was a fan of MSU, nowhere near the program. I just went to the games every once in a while. But even then, I could feel kind of an excitement and energy around the program. The problem is it never translated into wins. And if I was going to pin one thing on that, I'm sure there's plenty of reasons that I don't know about that you don't know. There are always things behind the scene that we don't know. Right. But if I had to pin on one thing, it's going to be recruiting. You have the team down the road in Michigan getting guys like this year. They had Owen Power, Matty Beniers, Luke Hughes, some of not just the best players in college hockey, but some of the best young hockey players in the nation. I mean, Luke Hughes is going to be a true NHLer. Owen Power is the number one prospect not in the NHL right now. Matty Beniers had a heck of a season. And it all comes down to recruiting. Minnesota as well. They're getting fantastic guys left and right. Of course, you have those veteran anchors. You have guys like Ben Myers who are there to anchor your team for 4 years. But it comes down to recruiting, and Danton Cole just could never really get those guys in there. He certainly has good pieces. Mitchell Lewandowski was fantastic in his time here. there were certainly moments, and Gavin Best this upcoming year is going to be good too, but it just never really, he could never really get his guys in there. There was a lot of fourth line guys who would have been perfectly fine in the bottom six of a team, but no one that can change your program, I guess. That's my biggest thing, is he never got a program changer.
Yeah, for sure. When you look at, and of course you mentioned Matty Beniers. He had a pretty good game last night. Of course, got a goal with the against the Flames last night in the big win for the Kraken up in Calgary. So fun stuff.
I love him. I wrote for a Red Wings blog last year, and just looking at prospects that I would have loved to have on the team, man, if the Red Wings had to pick anywhere close to Matty Beniers, he would have been it. Dude's a beast. I love him.
Yeah, for sure. So the next question is, whenever this happens, what's next?
So I don't have any insider information. I know just as much as you at the moment.
Okay.
But there are certainly some educated guesses going around that I've seen. So, like in terms of replacements, I assume because of the timing, they're going to hire. It's not going to be an interim thing. I think they're going to clean house, completely new staff. But a name I've heard a lot, Chris Solari mentioned it. I've seen it just around the MSU hockey landscape lately. Is Adam Nightingale. He's currently coaching with the U.S. national development team.
Yep.
Which is where Dan Cole's from. So it makes sense. He has coaching experience. He was a video coach for the Detroit Red Wings and the Buffalo Sabres. Most importantly to me, though, working with the U.S. national development team, he's worked with people like Chaz Lucius, like Luke Hughes. Like I mentioned, why this program kind of failed under Danton Cole was not getting players like that. And Nightingale has worked often with those players. And of course, the most important part, he's a Michigan State alum. He played there from 03 to 05. He was also the director of hockey operations for a bit. So there's a reason he's coming to the top most. It just makes sense. He's a choice you're going to hear throughout the entire process. But I do think there's something to be said about not necessarily going back to the alum well, because Dan Cole was an alum. That didn't work out well.
Yeah.
I think the other option there, if it's not Nightingale, I think they go to just one of the best college hockey coaches out there. There are a few really good choices right now. For me, I wrote a piece about it, but the guy that comes to mind for me is Eric Lang. He is coaching for AIC, American International College. He did exactly what MSU needs there. He turned a program around. AIC was a dumpster fire when he got there, just a horrible program. The second he gets there, they're consistently making tournaments. They're consistently competing. He has proven that he can inject a winning culture into a program that has no history of winning culture. So Eric Lang is a guy that really sticks out to me. But from here, it's just getting that home run guy. And obviously that's easier said than done, but that's the next step, I guess.
It seems like that's been the really going from that, because there's recently been a lot of changes with coaches throughout there, and there possibly could be more down the road. But where are we at in terms of, because since I believe Alan Haller, the new AD over there, he's had a really big impact on up in East Lansing in regards to athletics over there.
Yeah, and that's the part where it really is in Alan Haller's hand. It might be a bit too early in Mel Tucker's tenure to really say for sure, but I'd like to say that was a pretty fantastic hire. They just brought in a new volleyball coach with a fantastic record.
Yeah.
I think Alan Haller is a guy who wants to bring MSU to that next step. MSU athletics has been climbing, I'd say, for the past few decades, and he's really the guy that seems to be willing to take it to the next step with spending just a boatload of money on Mel Tucker and bringing in high-level talent like that. So really the ball is in his court. I think he hit the nail on the head there. Alan Haller is going to be super important. If he goes out there and is a little cheap with it, we know that he doesn't, we know that hockey isn't high on his priority list, I guess is what I'm getting at. But if he really takes this seriously and he goes out there and, like you said, new leadership, he has a proven track record. I think Alan Haller could be a guy who could find that home run. So again, hard to tell at this time. There's a lot of money going to the basketball and to the football programs right now, so there might not be a lot out there for him. But yeah, it's up to him, I guess.
What's the biggest experience that you've had covering this team this year?
So my favorite experience was against Ferris State. I think it was like November 12th. It was a couple days after my birthday. They had a 4-1 or they had a 3-0 comeback. That was early in the season because they actually started the season 11-8-1. They started off like, oh, maybe Dan Cole is changing this program around, and that was one of those wins that really made me drink the Kool-Aid a bit.
Oh,
It was in Big Rapids. It really got me hyped. That was certainly an experience I'm going to take with me. I love that.
yeah, we don't drinking the cool. That's an interesting phrase. Yeah, we're used to that here. So the biggest thing with that, what needs to happen? We know what needs to happen, but what needs to happen and what's going to happen are going to be two different things.
So when there are already steps in place that are being taken to make this program better. I will say to Dan Cole's credit, he helped get that MUN renovation project that had like a whole new weightlifting program, a lot of new things. And I've actually talked to Matt Baskell, Gavin Best, and a couple other recruits, and they said that was a part of why they're coming. Is MSU athletics provides them with the kind of stuff that's going to make them better as a hockey player and as a person. So there are certainly steps in place, but in terms of what the program needs to do, they need to continue down this trajectory. And Alan Haller, like I said, I think he needs to go out and he needs to take a risk. I already mentioned it before. Adam Nightingale might be the guy at the top, but he's kind of the safe choice. He's kind of the guy that just makes a little too much sense. I think he go for someone like Eric Lang, or I mentioned this guy in my article on 3 possible candidates. Brock Sheehan, he's the head coach of the Chicago Steel right now, which is one of the best programs in the USHL. Just go out and get someone crazy like that. It might not work out, but at least you're trying something new. At least you're trying something different. I just another name I've seen too. I forget his name, but he's an MSU alum coaching at Lake Superior State. I think that's a pretty similar hire to what Dan Cole would be, where it's just kind of like, okay, he has head coaching experience, nothing special. Because before Dan Cole came to MSU, he was at Alabama Huntsville and was horrible. He resigned there. He was terrible, but they still hired him just because the alum stuff. So I don't think alum needs to be top of the priority list here. I think you need to go out and get a guy who has proven success of winning, because that's what this needs, is winning. We need to this program needs a winning culture. So you get a coach like Eric Lang or like some of those other names I mentioned, and you take a risk, take a flyer on a guy.
Yep. All right, Alex, great insight as always, and well, we'll definitely have you back on again sometime, and who knows, we may have some news later on in the next few weeks, especially when a coach is hired. But Alex, thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy night to join us, and we'll have you on again soon.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Casey.